Welcome, Sophia. Let's see here. We're gonna go ahead and also go live on Facebook. See if I can pull that up. There we go. We'll go live on Facebook and we'll get an introduction going, and then we'll start off with just a very short grounding meditation, and then we'll introduce Jenna. Let's see here. So we're having some technical difficulties with going live. Let's try that again. So we will be live on Facebook. Usually we have another 5 to 10 people that join us on Facebook. So we will have a full crowd. We'll see how many show up today. We're just happy to be here. And okay, there we go. Looks like we're going live on Facebook. So wait a second here for it to confirm. There we are. Okay, so today we have Jenna J on the topic of healing the nervous system through authentic living. Welcome everyone to Healing Conversations. A little bit about Healing Conversations. This space was inspired by the thought of creating space for connection and building tribe, where we can just simply come as we are and feel no judgment, feel fully accepted, and really help us to look within what is our path, not just saying this is the formula to live an authentic life. No, we each have our own path. And so the thing here is to know that you are perfect just as you are, that there's no error in you, that you are enough, you are worth it. And so this space is based on unconditional love and acceptance. So I hope that you feel that energy as we have Jenna and ourselves and everyone here interact and connect with each other. But before we get started, again, the topic is healing the nervous system through authentic living by our special guest speaker, Jenna J. I'd like to just invite everybody to join me for a very short meditation. Invite you to close your eyes. So obviously, if you're driving, don't close your eyes and just simply listen. But if you are in a seated, safe area, definitely close your eyes and take a deep breath and hold it. And now embrace yourself with a big hug and say, I love you. Release the breath. Now take another deep breath and hold it and say, I accept myself. Then release the breath. Now take another deep breath and hold it and say, I am doing the best I can. And release the breath. Now open your eyes and be here now. Arrive in your seat and release all the stressors, all the thoughts, all the meditating that may have been going on before our call. And let's give our full attention to Jenna. A little bit about Jenna again. The topic for today is healing the nervous system through authentic living. So a little bit about Jenna. She's a passionate women's wellness facilitator committed to exploring multidimensional living. Her personal journey through its temporary paralysis on the right side of her body sparked a deep exploration of the healing power of breath and authenticity. Wow, I'm so interested and intrigued as far as like that story. Wow. So Jenna creates nurturing environments where women can thrive in their finances, health, and self-relationship, emphasizing radical honesty and honoring personal commitments. Through women's circles, breathwork sessions, and connection workshops, she fosters empowerment and connection among women. Jenna's mission is to inspire others to embrace their journeys and cultivate vibrant, authentic lives. Welcome, Jenna.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you for that beautiful opening. If you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it. I always say, let's start off with the breath and just ground ourselves. So I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you, Renee. So yeah, I'm just going to start off with my story. 10 years ago, I woke up from a nap with paralysis on the right side of my body. And as terrifying and scary as that was, it wasn't as scary as what proceeded to happen over the next 6 months. So over the next 6 months from that event, I began having 3, 6, sometimes 12 severe panic attacks per day. And it just completely debilitated my life. And I went from suicidal and barely surviving to, well, at least in a mindset of thriving. And so, for me, authenticity is our highest form of self-expression. And for a long time, for myself at least, it felt like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, very challenging and very painful. And so, a little bit about my story. I grew up in a small town outside of Monterey to a very religious and a military family. And I knew very early on that I had a lot of expectations placed on me. And the thing with expectations, it's often like wearing the tightest of corsets, right? It can look very pretty and beautiful on the outside, but it's very tight and constricting on the inside. And so today I just want to share a little bit about my journey of what I feel were the major contributors that led to this event that happened to me 10 years ago. And then on the other side, I will share all of the things that I felt allowed me to heal my nervous system through learning to live more authentically. So I want to start out with the number one major contributor, which was the pressure to conform. And this one was a big one for me, when growing up in a family that is very religious, and I didn't have any problem growing up in a religious setting. I always say, especially, look, I had my own journey with religious trauma. And for me, I realized that I didn't have a problem with religion. I was having difficulty with how some people live out their religion. And in my case, I grew up in a family where I literally grew up in the church. My grandfather was the pastor of our family church. My grandmother was a missionary. And my grandfather on my father's side was a pastor only blocks away from the church that I went to as a young child. So there was a lot of church in my life, and it was actually quite nice. I grew up in a community with a lot of love, and there was a lot of community around me at all times. I think I was in the church 6 out of 7 days a week. And, it was a lot of stuff going on, perfect for a child. But what happened was my grandparents became very concerned with their image, being pastors and missionaries in the community. A lot of people in that community looked up to them, and they gave a lot of great service to the community. They were true servants. But I began to observe and absorb at an early age that my grandparents weren't always being true to themselves. They weren't always lining up with the actions that they were putting out to the community. And so as little Jenna turned into bigger Jenna and began to go through her life, she really had difficulty understanding her true identity, because I had observed being one way on the outside and being another way on the inside. And it's not that who I was on the inside was any better or worse than who I was on the outside. It just wasn't who I was authentically. So very early on, I learned to wear many hats. And I think growing up in such an innocent and wholesome and sweet childhood, as I got exposed to an environment that was very different from mine, to go from growing up in the church and going to a private Christian school to going out into public school, it was a very jarring experience. I realized that the sheltered and protected life that I lived was no longer the case. And so now I'm going to go a little bit into identity. I think I got so caught up in wanting to be everything that everyone wanted me to be. If I made friends who liked to party, then Party Jenna was on. If I made friends who wanted to be wild, Wild Jenna was there. And if I made friends who were super sweet and, lived a very wholesome life, then I was that Jenna too. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting mentally, emotionally, on the nervous system. But I just didn't see it that way at the time. I was constantly in fight or flight as I was trying to show up, being the person that everyone wanted me to be. And conformity is an interesting word. When we think of conformity, we think of social pressure, we think of political pressure, we think of religious pressure. But we're faced with conformity every day of our life. Where I always like to give the example of, your partner, your husband or wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever. It could be as simple as your partner saying, babe, do you mind doing the dishes tonight? And you feeling like, you know what, I'm exhausted. I just don't think that I'm up for doing the dishes tonight. And instead of communicating and talking it through, with your loved one, we make the decision of, I'm going to go against what is natural to me, what feels good for me right now, and I'm going to say yes, even though it's a no. And for me, that became my whole life. I was constantly saying yes when really it was a no. I mean, who here, type in the comments if you can relate to just conforming to things that that you don't want to, because conformity is rooted in fear. And I always say there's the vibration of fear or there's the vibration of love. And anytime that we're going against our authentic self, and as we begin to spend time with ourselves and know ourselves, we begin to develop this authentic discernment, right? And as we begin to lean into that authentic discernment, our body, is very loud. And I think sometimes when we say yes, our body is saying, hey, why did you say that? Why did you say that? Sometimes we get a little sweaty, our heart races, or we just feel all around frustrated. And, my intention today is to remind all of us that we are mystical and mysterious creatures created by divine. We are so powerful. And I think so often we give our power away because we just don't realize how powerful we are, how much our body will guide us, how much our body will speak to us. So back to this conformity, I think that I learned that I just had conformed in so many situations over my life from a very young age up until 26, that all of these things begin to build up, and if we're not adjusting, if we're not learning, if we're not releasing, there's nowhere else for it to go. This energy, it attaches to our tissue, it begins to, fire off different neural pathways, which eventually can harm us if we're not nurturing and giving care to our bodies and to what we need as human beings. So moving on from pressure to conform. And lastly, I just want to say that, the pressure to conform can lead to deep connection or lead to a deep disconnection from our true selves. So I think anytime we ask ourselves, do I feel in alignment with what is true to me or do I not? Then do what is true to you. All right, I want to move on to the next one. So the next one is the cost of suppression. And I think this is another one we can all relate to. I became a master at wearing masks. And the horrible part is back in my younger days, this is something that I was proud of. I think trying to hide who I was truly from everyone, as I began to move out of the church, I got into this habit of, pretending to be the perfect angel in front of my family. And so I would go out into the world and live my life one way, and then go into my house and live my life another way. So much so that I would bring friends home to visit my family with me. And they would say, hey, I don't even recognize this person when you're with your family. I mean, how many of us have just felt so afraid to stand up to our family or our friends or a loved one that we just put on that different hat because, again, we're conforming because it's easier to keep the peace than to just say, hey, this is who I really am. So this is just two things right here, but just these two things can build up in the body and wreak havoc if we're not mindful of how we're acting out, conforming and suppressing. So for me, again, my family is the master of suppression. And, I, I really learned from just observing them so many years. And I knew that I didn't want to be someone who suppresses. I wanted to be someone who expresses. And expression is the literal opposite of suppression. So I always encourage, if you feel the need to suppress, find a way to express. And for me, there's been just so many wonderful tools and outlets. But at the time, I didn't have these outlets, and we'll get to those later. But I watched a lot of suppression in my family. And when I look back at it, it's actually quite heartbreaking. But, my family just cared so much about how they looked on the outside. And so I took on the mentality of caring so much how I looked on the outside. And I would go to great extents and great lengths to make sure that people didn't see who Jenna really was. Is Jenna hurting? Never. Jenna was always okay. Am I struggling? I was never struggling. Everything was just fine. Whether somebody hurt me or, upset me, I would never let them know. I just always pretended like I was okay 100% of the time. And for me, I thought that I was really, really good at hiding my feelings. I was so proud of it. I put myself on a pedestal because I thought, wow, I'm the perfect person. I mean, my ego was just so big. And, I didn't realize the damage that I was doing at the time. And I have no regret. I do believe that things don't happen to us, things happen for us. And no matter how devastating, if we're able to take the opportunity to look back and learn, and have opportunities like this where we get to share so that, others can look at that and say, hey, I really resonate with that. And maybe I'll take a deeper look. But, I really lost a sense of self. And it took a lot of broken relationships. And that's the other thing. I think when we don't know who we are truly, and then we go out into the world and desperately attempt sometimes to forge genuine connection in the world, how can we forge a genuine connection if we don't even know who we are as people? So for me, I was trying to form a genuine connection, but I had no vulnerability. I was always suppressing how I was really feeling. And if a friend came and tried to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Can I support you? I would say, no, I'm great. Everything's fine. And I think that's where the term toxic positivity came from. We spend so much time trying to spiritually bypass all of our shadow work that we overlook the opportunity to truly build true connection and community with the people that are all around us. There's so much opportunity to connect with people, but sometimes we stand in our own way because we're trying to protect ourselves. And I think sometimes we need to just let it go and just open ourselves up, and take that chance to be vulnerable with others and allow people to see who we truly are. Because the suppression can only go on for so long, and some people say, well, hey, I talked to my grandmother about this, and she's very open about her suppression. She just thinks that family protects each other and that what happens inside of our family is no one else's business. And my family will go to great lengths to hide and not show the vulnerability that we're going through collectively as a family. But what happens is none of the family feels safe, because instead of sitting down and talking about what's bothering one another, what's hurting one another, everyone has gotten into this habit of saying, we're a family, we love each other, and we're just gonna sweep it under the rug and it's all good. But our family now is lacking a lot of connection because there's too much suppression. All right, so now I want to move on to the next one, and that was the lack of self-acceptance. And this one was a tough one for me. I feel like growing up in a military setting, I do feel like I received a lot of love growing up, but I feel like I also received a lot of order and direction. And there wasn't no, it was only yes. If I said, no, I don't want to do that, it was, well, you're going to. And I grew up in a Southern Baptist family, so I didn't have a choice. I mean, there's always a choice, but I was always met with a belt or a pot or a pan, wooden spoon. So when you're growing up in a family where there's all of these threats, if you say no, then it's very easy to just say yes all the time. But what happened was I started to twist the relationship I had with my family, and I wasn't seeing it as love anymore. I was seeing them as dictators, as controlling. And so when I left my family environment, I went out so desperate for love, so desperate for acceptance. And I think no matter what our life has been like, whether we received a lot of love, a little love, no love growing up, I think that it's just our desire as human beings to be seen, heard, loved, and accepted. And so often we're so fixated on receiving from an external source that we don't do the work to learn how to accept ourselves. It's often said, if you want to attract the love that you desire, give it to yourself first. But I didn't know how to do that. I'd never been shown, I never had an example of what it looks like to truly accept yourself, because I had a family that was covering things up and suppressing and lying and being someone else on the outside. And that didn't look like self-acceptance to me. So I became very desperate for approval. I mean, raise your hand or type in the comments if you've heard of approval addiction. I had it bad. I had it bad. And I was just like a puppy at everyone's doorstep. Love me, accept me. But they weren't loving me, these people, my friends or boyfriends or whoever they were, for who I was, because I didn't know who I was. I was just being whoever they wanted me to be so that they would take me in and accept me. But really, it just led to a lot of being taken advantage of. It led to a lot of emotional abuse. And so I just want to highlight, I mean, just imagine our human body, imagine the billions of nerves that we have moving through our being, and now having this pressure to conform, having this constant suppression, and then having this lack of self-acceptance and carrying all of these things on a daily basis. I could feel that it was starting to boil up and take a toll on me, but I was living a fast life. I'll say at 26, I was living a life that probably most 26-year-olds would dream of. I had what I felt was a great love, and had the money and the travel and the adventure, and I would just jump on every opportunity to experience life. If someone said, let's go race cars, I would do it. Or let's go scuba dive, even though we don't have a license, like, let's do it. And so I think that, paired with all of these things, just really, really, really took a toll on me, because I was more concerned with the fast life and experiencing life. And we should absolutely have all of these things, all of our desires, we should have them. But I think that the inner work, which is why we are all here. I feel that we're all on a path to, seeking out or reconnecting with our spiritual self, because we're all spiritual beings, but I think it's just this journey of remembrance. And sometimes we have to sit down and take a deep look at ourselves and be radically honest. I think the difficult thing is sometimes we don't want to be radically honest with ourselves. We don't even want to set aside the time to just say, how do I feel today? Sometimes we spend so much time waiting on someone else to ask us how we feel. But I think it's important, every morning or every night before we go to bed, just do a self check. How am I feeling today? And kind of just start with the body. How does my body feel? How do I feel in my mind? How do I feel emotionally? But I never gave one thought to this, in my 20s. It was just go, 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 go. And I think that that's somewhat natural. I mean, I think the newer generations are a little bit more evolved. There's a little bit more of a conversation and a narrative around, self-help and spirituality and, our inner journey. But I didn't have that when I was younger. This is something that wasn't talked about. It wasn't something that was offered to me. And therapy wasn't even a huge thing. So, I just felt completely on my own, to my own devices. And even though I grew up in a very faith-based setting, because of all the hurt that I had received from my family when I decided that church wasn't going to be a 6-day a week thing for me anymore, I just didn't see why I should have faith. So I relied completely on myself. There was no God, there was no source, there was no divine. And I think ultimately that was a huge part of what hurt me as well. So, I really had to learn to sit down and look at my flaws, which, hey, when I was 26, I thought that I was flawless. And so it was a major problem. These things were all building up. So now I want to move to the last one. And the last thing that I really feel contributed to my nervous system, I used to say my nervous system betraying me, but I don't see it that way. I was betraying myself. But I wasn't creating a safe space for authenticity. And again, this goes back to just being vulnerable. I didn't care for supportive environments because if I'm honest with myself, I don't think that I really was looking for genuine connection with people. And I think that I'm speaking to people who are all looking for genuine connection now. But at that time in my life, it wasn't something that I was seeking. It was just all about what experience can you give me? What can you do for me? So I was intentionally, unintentionally not allowing supportive environments in my life to be myself, to feel safe in my authenticity, because I didn't know what the authenticity was. I didn't know what it felt like to be safe in my being. I didn't know what it felt like to allow someone in. And quite frankly, I didn't want it. I was concerned with overconsumption, materialism, more and more and more. And all of these things just continue to pile on. And I think that we're all sent here to this earth with a different kind of architectural blueprint. We come here with our calling. And sometimes we have to go through these things to bring us to our calling. And as painful as it was, I truly believe that everything that happened for me, this pressure to conform, the cost of suppression, the lack of self-acceptance, and not creating space for authenticity, I think this all led me, to this devastating event that happened because it got my attention. I wasn't ready to listen to the pastor. I wasn't ready to listen to my friends, and I wasn't ready to listen to my family. I was so content and so happy in the life that I was living because I thought that I was having the time of my life. Yet, looking back now, I cried a lot of tears because even though I had so many friends around me, I felt incredibly lonely. I shed a lot of tears because my relationship that looked so perfect on the outside, so much so that I would have friends calling me, like, how do you do it? You know, you guys look so perfect on Instagram. I just was not happy. I was suffering in every aspect of my life, but I tricked my mind so much into believing that I was living the high life, that I was so happy that I didn't realize how much I was internally hurting, how much I was self sabotaging myself. And the nervous system, as intricate and as amazing and as powerful as it is, it absorbs everything that we put into it. You know, I feel that the moment we put our energy towards something, it's met with momentum. And if we continue to say that, you know, I'm this, I'm that, but it's not true to who we are, the momentum goes. And it just all caught up with me and came to a halt. So, going back to my story, 10 years ago, I woke up from a nap with paralysis on the right side of my body. I got rushed to the hospital, and naturally, they thought I had a stroke, but I found out that it was not a stroke. And they left me with no advice, no help, no medication, no nothing. They simply said, we've never seen anything like this, and we suggest that you learn to take care of yourself. They did suggest that perhaps it was a stress event, but they didn't tell me how I would get my mobility back. You know, I went in slurring my speech. I couldn't speak or anything. And so that was probably the most scary part of all, was that the medical system that I felt had been really good to me up until then had failed me. So I left the hospital and I got straight on Google and started Googling my symptoms, trying to figure out how can I help myself. And this is the first time in my life where I had to learn how to advocate for myself, how to advocate for my health, because at this point, I realized how lonely I really was, because all of those friends that had been there for me all of a sudden weren't interested because Jenna was debilitated. I couldn't go out and party with them anymore. You know, I couldn't go to their houses and drink or whatever we did. You know, I was laying in my bed, just having so many panic attacks. And I had to quit my job. I couldn't drive anymore. My own boyfriend started to turn against me because I couldn't travel. You know, I couldn't go anywhere. And so there was just a lot of tension everywhere I turned. And I realized, wow, I'm really alone. But what amazed me, who was there for me, was my family. And so, in the safety and comfort of my family, I began to go through this journey of what is wrong with me. And everything brought me back to the nervous system. Ultimately, I ended up hiring a breath coach who would come into my home and sit with me and take me through the journey of breath, which ultimately gave me the clarity to see all of these things that I just shared with you. You know, I couldn't see these things from the chaos I was living in at the time. So, you know, this breath, I always say it saved my life, but it really opened up an opportunity for me to do a true inner healing work. And it really played a huge role in how I live out my life today. You know, I can't say that, you know, my nervous system is 100% healed, because we all have different kind of experiences and things that come into our life that allow us to pull out the tool belt, right? So I'm still met with pressure to conform. You know, I'm still met with, you know, opportunities. Are you going to suppress this? Are you going to use your expression? But I've created an amazing tool belt where I am panic attack free. You know, I'm working, I'm driving, I'm living my life. I know who I am, you know, and it's so much better place. You know, I don't have all the things that I had back then, and I don't want all the things that I had back then, you know, because a new person was birthed out of this devastating thing that happened. But it really taught me a lot. I learned a lot about our nervous system. I learned that, we have a parasympathetic nervous system. I call that nervous system our friend, the one that we give love to, the one that we nurture and take care of because it takes care of us. Our parasympathetic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that reduces our heart rate, that gives us rest, that gives us peace. So there's also the sympathetic nervous system, and that's when we're in fight or flight. So I always say these are the two major nervous systems to pay attention to. And it's very important to recognize when you're in fight or flight. And now that's the sympathetic nervous system. No bueno. Let's stay away from that. We want to move over to nurturing and activating our parasympathetic nervous system. And as we begin to learn about our nervous system and learn which nervous system we're giving energy to, then we can really begin to learn how to calm our whole being, no matter what is happening in our life. And sometimes it's very simple to know which nervous system you're activating because of how your body responds. When you begin to feel fear, instead of that peace, maybe I'm giving too much energy. Maybe I'm activating the sympathetic nervous system. When your heart rate is raised and you feel like your heart is beating out of your chest, that's activating the sympathetic nervous system. When your body begins to feel like it's expressing different ailments out of nowhere, that's the sympathetic nervous system. And so I think I always say, look at the parasympathetic nervous system as your baby, something that you have to take care of every day and nurture. Every day there should be some sort of practice or ritual around activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Because once we begin to create that pattern for ourselves on a daily basis, it becomes natural, having that thought in the mind. Beliefs are just thoughts that we think over and over and over again. It should be a belief for each and every one of us that our parasympathetic nervous system needs to be activated on a daily basis. And it can be activated in many ways. It can be activated by turning on your favorite music that just soothes your soul and brings peace into your life. It can be activated by journaling. It can be activated by just taking moments out of your day to do some deep breathing. It can be activated by spending time with your loved one, so there's many ways to activate it, and we'll have a Q&A afterward, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But now I want to move into how exactly we can heal our nervous system through authentic living, and what I learned through my breathwork coach, and just what I learned through my own experience over the years as I was regaining my life back. The first one was reducing stress. And stress is inevitable. Stress is something that we all experience. We have work stress, we have family stress, we have partner stress. And I think it's just really about being radically honest with ourselves again. I don't know what the number one killer is right now. I know the last time I checked, it was heart disease. But ultimately, I think that stress is really the number one killer because everything is linked to stress in the body. The body cannot thrive when there is stress present in the body. So we need to learn how to relieve the pressure of conforming, the pressure of living out of, or just living out of alignment in general. These are all things that stress us out. We have to learn to have our boundaries and to advocate for ourselves. And I know that it can be really challenging. Some of us work in corporate environments where we're too afraid to ask for what we want. And I always say, it's ultimately your decision, but we either be in it or we get out of it. We only have this one body in this lifetime, at least. And we need to take care of it. And it's just so easy to put everyone else's needs before ours. We take the stress away from everyone else and then we absorb it ourselves. And this is the most dangerous habit to be in. And no matter how challenging it is to sit down with the boss or how challenging it is to sit down with the partner, and trust me, I know how hard it is, we need to get into the habit of making the effort, because even these little things in our relationships or with our family, they add up. The body is literally keeping score. We may not feel like we're keeping score, but the body is keeping score. So every time that, your family does something that upsets you and you're taking on the stress when really we should be having a conversation about it, check, that's a score. When your partner says something that upsets you and you just brush it under the rug and the body starts experiencing stress, check, that's a score. We really need to move away from that. We need to acknowledge, I'm stressed right now, and do something about it, whether it's going for a walk, getting some sunshine, putting on the music, or just turning to the person or the thing that is adding that stress to your life and saying, hey, let's create a supportive environment and we need to have a conversation about this, because your life is not worth being ended early because you chose to protect someone else over you. I mean, aside from, our connection with something outside of us, source, God, whatever that is for you, I, Noe, Mark, Alan, we are our most important person, our most important priority. And if there's anything that I want to get across to all of you today, it is to take care of you at all costs, And I'm not saying to run over people or to not be empathetic, but I don't know if you all are familiar with Abraham Hicks. You can put something in the comments if you are, but Abraham Hicks is I've been a student for a long time, and they say something wonderful. And it's sometimes we can be really happy in life. We finally reach our happiness, right? And happiness can only come from us. We often say, I need someone in my life to make me happy. I need this job to make me happy. But external happiness is fleeting. Ultimately, we can only make ourselves happy. But sometimes what happens is when we reach our happiness, we become so concerned with whether everyone else around us is happy. I need to make sure my friend is happy. I need to make sure my mom is happy. I need to make sure my partner is happy. Now we've become so stressed over making sure everyone else is happy, everyone else is taken care of. Well, if we're stressed about everyone else, then are we truly happy? No, that can't exist, in the same vibration. So the more we take care of ourselves, the more we take care of others. There's a saying of when people bump you, whatever you're filled with spills out. So when you're being bumped, it's really important to understand, am I full? Is my cup full with what? With happiness, with support, with love? Or is it full with frustration, with stress, with a short temper? So reducing stress. The next one that really helped me with healing my nervous system through living authentically was promoting safety for myself. And this one was a big one. And I want to say ultimately safety in relationship with others, but also safety within ourselves. And I think the more we learn to create safe space for ourselves, we learn to create safe space for others. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself in my journey to help others before I learned how to fully help myself. And this is something that happens often. We get really excited as we begin our healing journey and we think, I'm ready to go out there and hold space for other people. But I was still struggling to hold space for myself. And so I just encourage all of you to create a practice of creating safety for yourself, whatever that looks like. Noe, you did a hug earlier as we were breathing. Sometimes it can just be so simple as a hug. I mean, I just encourage you to try it right now and just feel how the body receives that hug. Sometimes we can just feel this tingling and this happiness of receiving from our being. And that's safety. Sometimes it's just turning off your phone. For me, I have to put my phone far away to create safety. Whether you put it in your drawer or give it to your partner or wherever you put it, just unplug for a bit, lock yourself in your room, and just do whatever feels good for you. And it can look like anything. Sometimes safety for me, my latest thing has been doing handstands, just being alone with myself and my own expression, no matter how weird or quirky it is, and just doing something that feels good to my body. Somatic movement is a good one. And that can look like anything, just laying on the ground like a starfish and rolling back and forth. But the body receives these things. And sometimes just whispering to yourself, I am safe, because we need it so badly. And I think until we create those moments for safety, we don't realize how much of the world we have taken in that we don't wish to carry. It is often not until I just say, I'm creating space, that all the tears come out, because I don't realize how much I have been carrying from the day, because I'm just going, 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 going. If we don't create that space for ourselves to just express and release, it's inside of us. Think about the moments you just allow yourself to cry, and then you think, well, if I didn't create that space, where would that emotion have gone? It's staying within you. The emotion has to come out. The emotion is very important. The emotion is what puts us in our vibration, All right, the next one, it's enhancing connection. I think it's really important to get into the practice of creating genuine bonds with our friends, with our family, with each other. This is where learning how to emotionally regulate comes from. The more that we extend ourselves to others in the most genuine way, we're able to open up and create connection and have genuine communication with one another. And it's the people that isolate themselves, that don't open themselves up to connection, that tend to have the hardest time regulating their emotions, because there's no genuine connection in their life. There's no one to mirror them. And we need to be mirrored. That's how we learn who we are oftentimes. If you want to figure out, what's going on with you, just spend time with someone, because it's natural to mirror behaviors of the people that we spend the most time with. I can always tell when I'm having insecurity, because the person that I spend the most time with starts to show insecurity. And then I realize, I'm actually feeling a lot of insecurity inside. And so many things, onward. So create enhanced connection. And sometimes that's just getting out of our own way and reaching out. I know that life is busy now. It's really challenging to just pick up the phone and text or call a friend. But, I've really been trying to get back into a habit. And sometimes I just want to say, have grace for yourself. The universe divine extends us so much grace. I feel like we need to get into the practice of extending ourselves grace as well, because life is getting harder and harder. It's moving really fast. We have all of these things coming in. And if we need to start over a million times, so be it. It's not about holding ourselves to perfection. If you don't feel like you've lived in your authenticity today, doesn't mean that you're not going to live in your authenticity again. You wake up tomorrow and you try again. If you didn't give yourself grace today, it doesn't mean you're not going to give yourself grace tomorrow. We try again. I'm not always happy with how I respond to things or how I react to things. And I just go and I take a moment and say, mm, I was challenged there. I'm going to show up and try again. We just try again. Next, it's the self-acceptance. We really have to learn to accept ourselves for who we are, the good, the bad, the ugly, the past, the future, all of it. We can't let other people dictate who we are. We can't let the world tell us who we are. We can't expect everyone to accept us. Not everyone is going to be, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And I think that was probably the most challenging one for me. When one grows up wanting so desperately to be liked, six people can like me, but one person, decides they don't. It'll ruin my whole day. That one person doesn't like me. Why should I come out of my house now? We can't live like that. Not everyone is going to like us. What's important is that we like, love, and accept ourselves, that we're happy with ourselves and our journey. This spiritual journey, it can be very isolating sometimes. The more that we evolve into new versions of ourselves, it calls for a new environment. And sometimes that new environment comes with new work, new people, new life. There's a lot of newness, which comes with a lot of unexpected circumstances, and so when we have all of this newness and we're trying to make our way in this new environment, we're like, oh, we have a fresh slate. I want everyone to like me. No, it doesn't work like that. We should just be so happy that we're evolving and that we're moving into these new environments with new people to support our journey as we move forward, and just be happy, like, the vibration that I'm on, the things that I'm aligning with have gotten me here. And no matter how lonely it feels right now, I'm doing something right on the inside, and sometimes we have to just give ourselves a little bit of pat on the back, a little bit of praise, because a lot of our inner work is not being seen. Even the people close to me don't know all of the work that I'm putting into myself. And it's not their job to know. This is our journey. It's so personal to us. And so it's so important to recognize how far you've come and accepting yourself for the amazing person that you are, because we're all wonderful. It's only when we decide to move off of that, vibration into these negative thought patterns that tell us that we're not. But we are. We've all been born, abundant and wonderful and lovely and powerful and all of these things. And it's just constantly having to remind ourselves that I am born of divine creation. I am so powerful. I am so amazing. And I'm going to show up as such, I know we're getting close to the hour. So I just want to say the last one is facilitating emotional release. And I talked about this a little earlier, but creating space for you to release your emotions, whether you do it on your own or you reach out to a friend or a partner and just say, hey, I need to get some stuff off of my chest. I need to just have a cry session, whatever it is. Find ways to facilitate that emotional release for yourself, because it is so important and it can quite literally save your life. Give yourself those moments to cry, give yourself those moments to just talk it out with yourself. I mean, talking to myself has been one of the most healing tools that I've had. Sometimes I just need to go somewhere quiet where I'm alone and just talk through everything that I'm feeling. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm feeling like I'm really just screwing things up. I feel like things aren't going well for me. And it's okay to let those things out, but then, have that moment of recovery and pour goodness back into you. I know that I'm struggling right now, but everything is okay because I say that it is. You know, I have an abundant future ahead of me. I have a prosperous future ahead of me. I have a future that that where I have community that supports me and loves me and uplifts me. I mean, just all the things that you desire, just speak it into yourself. But it's okay to start out by just letting it all out. You know, it's okay to be unhappy sometimes with our life. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to feel like we're not doing enough, you know, and just let it out. Don't hold it in. So lastly, I just want to close by saying maintaining a happy and regulated nervous system is so important. It's so important. And, you know, I'm happy to please reach out if you have any questions or anything. But I just want to emphasize again, we only have this one body in this one lifetime, and we need to take care of ourselves. And our nervous system is quite amazing. And so we need to nurture it. We need to care for it. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions, to share an abundance of tools, but just wake up every morning and just do something for the parasympathetic nervous system. I want to remind you, parasympathetic nervous system is your friend. Sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. And that's all. Thank you all so much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Jenna, for sharing so much insights. Wow, I took so much notes.
Mm.
Such an information, wisdom filled latest edition of our healing conversations. Wow. Thank you so much. We're running down on time here, so I'd like to open it up for anybody that has any expressions, any questions. We have Jenna here with us, so either raise your hand or speak away. Mark, looks like you have your hand raised.
Hi, Mark.
Yes, that was just great value, great stuff. I took tons of notes here. But I just wanted to thank you for that. Couple of things though.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about stress, I was waiting for you to tell everybody to remember that stress is a choice. It's not something that automatically happens. That it's not an automatic step in the process when something occurs. And we have to remember that it's always a choice. We could look at it as a challenge or a stress. And I say this because when I changed this for myself, instead of being anxious, I would be grateful, because you can't be in the same vibration at the same time. And that's where I thought you were going with it. But it was so awesome, everything that you were saying. But I just want to encourage everybody to remember that word's not in the Bible one time. If you can't find it in there, then it's probably something of the enemy, right? And so we have to remember that it's a choice. It's not an automatic step in the process. And so it could be challenging, but it's our choice to, if we allow it to become stressful or not. And I just loved everything you were saying, especially the part about the vibration. And just want everyone to remember the lights can't be on and off at the same time. So if you're feeling anxious or stressful, get in gratitude or get in the positive, the flip side of whatever that bad feeling is. Find the flip to it and get in that, because you can't be on and off at the same time. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I appreciate you just, first of all, sharing your positivity. I love the positive energy that just exudes off of you, but also just sharing your insight. And you're absolutely right. We always have a choice. First of all, we always have a choice. And yeah, I mean, stress can be looked at as a challenge, but it's definitely rooted in fear. It's similar to anxiety. They say anxiety is actually excitement. You know, so we can choose, are we going to be anxious or are we going to be excited? You know, are we going to be stressed or are we going to, you know, move into a different vibration?
And we have both at the same time, right?
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like we also have Renee with her hand up. Renee?
I just quickly, thank you so much, Jenna. That was profound. And, you know, it is fascinating that you had such incredible suffering, but it did lead you to this self awareness and growth and to help heal yourself. So it's powerful that you're using it for good. And I too was going to share that my son is in the Army and he's airborne ranger and he does not like jumping out of the planes, but he said that he takes the word fear and he, you know, says that he's excited to jump out. So along the same themes to kind of reframe everything. Thanks again.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate you being here today.
Any last expression? I have time for maybe one last expression, question, reflection, anything you may need support, whether it's related to our topic or not. This is a space for that. Alan.
Jenna, that was
Hi,
just
Alan.
awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you were saying and really felt it deeply. Just wanted to ask, how do you help people going on from here? I mean, how can we get more from you?
Yes, great question. Thank you. Yeah, I can put you all are welcome to follow me and reach out on my Instagram, which is the Vitality Vortex. I'll write it in here in the chat. I do see someone asked that, so thank you. I also have a website. There we go. There we go. And then you can also find my website in the link in bio. Anyone else before we conclude today? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for all of you being here. Thank you for staying a little bit over. I appreciate it so much. It was just so great to share with you all, and thank you for just making me feel safe. You know, this is a very vulnerable topic, and I think no matter how comfortable we get with our story, it's still vulnerable to share, and you all just created such a wonderful space for me. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Jenna. We're so privileged to have you here sharing all your insights, and what an inspiring story to go from feeling all that stress, that deregulation in your nervous system, to physically getting sick, to actually healing yourself by learning and using those tools to live authentically, to experience and feel emotion and to let it course through, right? And not hold it in your body. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know, we're like 3 minutes past the hour. I would like to just invite everybody to close out the call with just another super short healing meditation, just to let go of whatever we may have in the body. So I invite everybody to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and hold it. And breathe in suffering. And release the breath. Take another deep breath and hold it. And breathe out loving kindness to yourself and everyone here. And release the breath. And now open your eyes. Maybe it's a little something we could do as a daily practice. It's so simple, right? Let's get rid of that suffering. Let's replace it with loving kindness to ourselves. Practice self-love, like Jenna said, acceptance, some grace, some empathy to ourselves and others. So anyways, appreciate everyone here. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Noe. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys next time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.